cumulative effects, and they're being actually felt. I think you had Cliff on, and he was pointing to some events that will come up in late August. Have you guys had that part of the conversation with him?
No.
Well, the recent one was on the crop circle glyph.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah, that's an entirely cool area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to get to this part where we have an emotional shift that takes place in the country, and you can kind of sense that the emotional shift is going to occur around sometime between, let's say, middle of August and end of September. And if you look at the chart on urban survival this morning, you'll see where in that period of time we're going to do probably another PPI, Producer Price Index, zero crossing, where the cumulative good news about falling producer prices will catch up with us, and then the market will likely really tank, probably putting in new new lows in a relative sense, at least since 2000 and long before that. Did that go off into the weeds far enough?
I think that when you talk about putting up slides to demonstrate, it's a very appropriate word. Slides is where we're going down. But
down the slide.
Down the slide.
Yeah, and somebody's put Vaseline on, or I'm sorry. It's a combination of, what was the old Talking Heads thing about their album was Sand and the Vaseline? That's kind of what this slide is like.
Well, I don't think even the Vaseline's going to keep us from having butt burn on this one.
No, I think we may have to just, 55-gallon drums of KY for the rest of the year.
Well, this is why people should get, and I saw also that you have updated your How to Live on $10,000 a Year. You're doing
I'll
that.
tell you the reason I updated that. The basic ideas of how to live on $10,000 a year are there, but we're going to have so many people going into new living situations that I have a subscription newsletter called peoplenomics.com, and that's where I get into a little more depth than I have to get into when I do these, the 3 hours worth of writing on urban survival in the morning. And one of the things that I put in there, is my phone about to die? Hang on. Hold on, I gotta change phones. Why, my fancy high-powered phone decided it didn't want to work for us.
Oh, it belongs to the government?
No, it's not that expensive or high-powered.
Oh, well, but it doesn't really, it can decide not to work for us, so I saw a similarity there.
Oh, yeah, well, mine answers, however, when people call.
Oh,
unlike
okay.
the ones in Washington. Your call has been directed to someone who doesn't give a damn. No,
you're low.
please.
You're low.
Yeah, right. So I was going to. Don't worry about me. I was just going to lay some more bad economic news on you about how the rest of the year shapes up. And I guess I could tell you that if we were to take out 4,400 on the Dow by the end of the year or January, someplace in there, that would surprise me zilch. I mean, that's where we really could go. And the problem is, I can get to my second story of interest. My daughter being laid off isn't a big deal, but it is to her and it is to me. But in the great national scheme of things, it's like, okay, fine. Economist is whining. Take 2 aspirin. Call you guys later.
Well, we're going to take a break first, and then we'll continue with that.
Got it. Well, stick around because this is a really interesting story.
They will stick around, believe it. This is Beyond the Ordinary with George Muir. Go to peoplenomics.com and subscribe, or go to urbansurvival.com and enjoy.
We are with the very Beyond the Ordinary George Muir, and he's going to now tell us the very interesting story. Do you remember it?
This is actually 2 little stories that make up a big story. The first little story is that I heard a report from somebody I trust as a source that a buddy of his was closing on a piece of property recently in what is Federal Region 10. That's like Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and part of Utah. And the story goes that this acquaintance went into a bank, a local bank in one of those states, and was about to drop drop closing papers and hand over checks on a $300,000 piece of property. Well, at the very last minute, this astute guy looked at the paperwork and saw that all the deal terms had changed. The initial bank commitment was for one interest rate, and what was put before him at closing was something else. And the bank fees, which were going to be next to nothing, suddenly ballooned such that the overall cost had gone up on the order of $10,000 to $20,000, and it was a cost that wasn't just on his side, but the deal terms were also changed to screw the seller over pretty good too. So this person I know of, through this source, simply looked at the folks in the room that were all kind of standing around salivating, waiting for him to put his John Henry on the loan docs. And he said, you know what? Screw this. This isn't what we agreed to. We're out of here. So he took his wife, who was going, dear, wait a minute. What's going on here? He said, they're trying to screw us. Let's get out of here. And they thought it was, the bankers apparently thought it was just like, oh, another one of these sheep thinks he's going to out-negotiate the mother bank. Ha, ha, ha. He'll be back in a couple of minutes. Well, they were out of the parking lot when somebody finally said, no, guys, they're going to their car. They're getting in their car. They're starting to drive away. Well, the people in the bank went out and started trying to wave down the car, and the person involved was in town from another state trying to buy this property, and they went back to their hotel room. It's now about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon by the time they get back to the hotel room. The phone is ringing off the hook, but rather than answer it, this fellow decides to say, you know, dear, it's been kind of a stressful day. Let's go out and have a really nice dinner and relax a little bit. So the next morning, promptly at 8 o'clock, their phone starts ringing again. It's the bank. And the bank wants them to please come back in. We're sorry, yes, we see there have been some errors. Everything is back to where it should be. And not only that, we're going to waive all of your closing costs. So obviously this guy went and did the deal. This is about 3 weeks ago. And owns the property. Life continues and goes on happily. Okay, now that's story number one. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, could it be that banks are really going through this act badly? So another incident comes along where one of my consulting clients, because I really do management consulting for an income, because a person can't make a living off the web, as any darn fool knows. So a consulting client of mine that I'd been guiding through the sale of his business in the upper Midwest called me up yesterday and said, holy smokes, here we are. We're supposed to close on this business sale. And I kind of coached him on, he wanted to sell his business for pretty good money and take the money from that, maybe go buy a couple of 100 acres in Tennessee or someplace, in the mountains and get back to life and do what my wife and I have done, which is get into a sustainable, live close to debt-free, so that you can survive any kind of financial storm, right? So guess what? The bank called the broker and started saying, oh, we need this and we need this and we need this. And the broker, he's just doing his job. He calls up my consulting client and says, well, before we can close on the sale of your business, we need this email from you, and you need to outline the business sales prospects for the next year, yada, 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 yada. And I told my consulting client, tell the guys, stick it in their ear. I mean, you've got a profitable business which you can pull six figures out of this year, even in the bad economic conditions, or they can buy it for X number of dollars, and I won't tell you the amount, but it's a healthy amount. I mean, the guy would net out pretty well. But I said, so you're really kind of in the catbird seat here. This is one of those deals where you can wink at universe and say, hey, I get it. my whole obligation here is to be ethical and hold to my true inner values, right? So my consulting client calls up the broker and says, you know what, tell the bank, stick it in their ear. The deal is supposed to close Monday. Everybody shows up with the right paper, the right amount of checks. If it isn't closed by 5 o'clock Monday and I'm out with my, here's my bottom line. If I'm not out with my bottom line, 1 penny less, I walk. Let me repeat that. 1 penny less, I'm out of here. So sure enough, today he called me and said, George, you're the greatest consultant in the world. Guess what? The bank called up and everybody is all happy and we're really going to close this deal on Monday. I'm going, well, of course you are, because the bankers aren't complete idiots, although it's hard to imagine them not be. But here's the thing. They're taking advantage of the American public right now in our moment of need. They're borrowing money from Tim and Ben over at the Magic Money Printery for 3/8%, right? So then they turn around and they're trying to get, 5.5%, 6%, 6.5%, and if they can, much more, in the interest that they're getting from their customers. Now, honestly, that's on top of many of these banks that are taking a pretty fat cut of the hog on 30 and 35% credit card interest rates. I had a third story, but it's also very instructive about how don't put up with any crap from banks should be your mantra of the day, because in Cliff's linguistics work, we see the part where bankers begin losing their position of power and esteem in society to the point where people go after them with pitchforks. Literally, lampposts and bankers have been popping up in the linguistics now for about 1.5 years. Well, we're getting close to that. So this latest little incident came in an email yesterday from an urbansurvival.com reader. He said, I didn't believe you. I called up my credit card company when I got my latest bill, and he had like 20.99% interest and thought, it was like, oh, wonderful act of God, a dispensation. I'm only having to pay 21% interest. He said, but just for the hell of it, I called them up and said, I want my interest rate reduced to 15. And the bank said, oh, well, no, you contractually are obligated to da-da-da-da-da. He said, well, let me put it to you this way. I want my interest rate reduced to 9, and I'll make a payment, or you can put it wherever you want, and you will get 0. Now, you take your pick. Now, he has a 9% credit card. See how this can work? But you have to, you can't go at it expecting anything less than total victory, because ultimately, even if Congress won't listen to us damn voters about that damn piece of paper, the Constitution, as somebody once referred to it, I hold it in